Now, you would have been so surprised and unhappy you've not seen the canal. We've changed that. Let's take a look, shall we? Now, should we want to get to California, we simply come down around here the same way to the canal. On the west coast of the Arjun River. Again, if we could have just another glimpse of the new map. Let me turn this around here. Almost went. Live from New York, it's Saturday Night!
Hello and welcome to the Not Ready for Primetime podcast. We're Gary Seath and Brad Robinson.
And you're not.
This week, we're talking about Season 3, Episode 11, with host Chevy Chase and musical guest Billy Joel. This show originally aired on February 18th, 1978. Brad, they got the old National Lampoon guy on.
Mr. Chase. Chevy Chase is back.
He is back.
Mr. Cornelius Chase.
Worlds are colliding, Gary. What not a better moment for our own worlds to collide. We've got a very special guest with us, somebody we've been dying to have on for a while, from the very cool podcast, That Week on SNL, Andy Dick. Andy, welcome. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here and, talking about this episode, which has always fascinated me.
It's an interesting episode, right?
Well, my first question is, why is Chevy back? Let's just ask the question right at the back. What's Chevy doing hosting the show?
Well, to my understanding, they already had two people drop out on this week.
John Travolta was the first one who backed out a few weeks earlier, right? And then...
Yeah, and I forget the second.
I had seen Raymond Burr, which I tried to research and see exactly why. It's the only other name I've seen attached to it.
John Travolta's contemporary, Raymond Burr.
Right. So... I guess they just kind of said, hey, screw it. We'll bring Chevy back and we'll kind of do our first nostalgic episode of the show. It's interesting through that lens because this is a show that would become increasingly more nostalgic about itself as it goes along. So, yeah, right here, basically, a little bit smack dab in the middle of season 3, basically.
Yep. Yeah.
And more or less smack dab in the middle of this era, we are looking towards the past. And, I mean, certainly the past came to bite him in the ass backstage.
Well, that's the thing. It's funny, this episode, we talked a little bit before we started recording, but this is an episode, and you mentioned it, Andy, like, everybody knows this episode. I think even like casual fans, I feel like know this episode, but you brought up a very good point. Everybody knows this episode for not the episode. Like they know what happened
right
outside the episode, before the episode. It's become this like mythical thing. But, episode alone, as we'll get into, there's nothing exciting about an episode on its own. Like you've mentioned, if you didn't know that this, the fight we're going to talk about happened beforehand, you'd have no idea. This would be another run-of-the-mill standard, SNL episode.
Yeah. You would never be able to tell from what's happening on screen that there is, there was chaos between dress and live.
Brad, will you go through the incident that we're talking about?
Let's try to dissect this incident and see where between the three of us we piece it together. But everything that I've been able to,
there's so many telling.
That's another great thing there. Again, through 40 some odd years, there's so many versions. But it sounds like it had this whole story starts before dress, right? Where I guess it kind of feels like the impetus of this fight starts with Chevy and Bill in the makeup trailer at one point, and they start, going at each other. And, John, the instigator, had been feeding Bill Murray lines all week and trying to get him riled up, which I don't think would take that much to get him going against Chevy.
No. You also got to keep in mind.
I was just going to say the same thing. It's not like they didn't know one another. Right, they have a long history.
It's not like Bill didn't know Chevy.
I was going to say you got to keep in mind they're all heavily medicated at this point too. They're
Yeah,
all.
true.
I mean, Chevy's even said this was like this week. It was like he had done the most drugs he'd ever done this week, allegedly trying to cope with what was going on because he walked into this environment that was not what he remembered because John had turned everybody against him. But so aside from everybody knowing each other and having all that history, you've got everybody on just different levels of God knows what.
Right.
Yeah. And so, it's hard to say. Like, some people say it's before even dress. Some people say it's between where they came to blows. But either way, like, it really, it bummed everybody out and certainly was a sticking point for like I said, this era of the show where everybody kind of went, oh, wow, we're kind of in it now, aren't we? But beyond that, I mean, and there's always, people bring up Bill's famous insult towards Chevy, which was medium talent. Called him a medium talent.
I love that line. I think it's one of the best lines.
And one of the most interesting things that one of our friend of our show, William Ham, sometimes a guest host and stuff, dug up was after Martin Mull had just recently passed. He dug up an article from around 77, 78, and it was detailing, Martin was just kind of hitting the scene, big time or bigger time at that point. And there was a situation where Martin went to, it was either a Lampoon show or a Second City show. He went with Rob Reiner, hadn't seen Rob in a while. And so I guess he was either high or drunk or both or whatever. And so he ended up, he's like, I don't care about the show. I want to talk to Rob. I haven't seen Rob in a while. And so apparently it was a very noisy audience member, but then went backstage afterwards and got into a fight with Bill Murray, and Bill Murray walked away calling Martin Mull a medium talent. So apparently that was just a thing that Bill Murray
already had it
would scream at. But so that was not enough comments. That was just apparently what Bill Murray liked to say as he walked away from people, is call them a medium talent.
I think that was Second City, because I've also read a story of Bill getting into a fight with Martin Mull at a Second City show where Martin Mull talked through it.
So,
Bill himself just known to, I think get into fights for no good reason if whatever he felt the need to. But I mean, this whole week leading up to it, there's stories you've heard too that, everyone was, I mean, rightfully so, right? Making a big deal of Chevy returning to the show. I mean, he was the star and he, on the show and left and is coming back. So there's, there's a story I've read a couple of times of there was a big photo shoot they tried to do with the whole cast and Chevy, and John stormed out of it and Dan stormed out of it and made a big deal of it even before Saturday rolls around. You get into all the back and forth with Bill and Chevy. I think they had some issues during a couple sketches. And then I think the apex of this whole story, Gary, as you were talking about, was, from the way I've been able to piece it, as much as I've been trying to read the different versions, is It is they had the argument before dress, they do dress, and everybody's pissed, and it sounds like it's Chevy's on the way to literally do the monologue, and he sees John and Bill in the dressing room, and he goes in to basically tell Bill to F off, and then Bill jumps, and that's when the fisticuffs come, legitimately like minutes before going on air. And everyone's now said, John got in the middle of it, and John took, Bill's described it as a Hollywood fight and whatever, right. But I think it originally started with Bill giving the line of, why don't you go fuck your wife? I heard she needs it.
Right.
Chevy makes a line about Neil Armstrong landing on Bill's face, very, very highfalutin stuff.
Yeah. Highbrow insults.
But there were like,
I mean, let's be honest. These guys are, they're kind of assholes.
Yeah.
I mean, I love them both. But I mean, they're not innocent babes, either of them. So, it's just idiots yelling at each other. And it's just so funny that it's become, one of the most told stories of the show's history, because it's just like, when you stop and think about it, it's like, Bill Murray and Chevy Chase had a fight and John was in the mix too. Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, of course. I'm sure that
as was a shitload of cocaine.
Right.
Like, I mean, this all makes sense. This all makes total sense.
And to Andy's point, right? It's become such a grand story that I believe Howard Stern has talked to Chevy Chase, Bill Murray, Billy Joel, like whoever he can who was there that night about this story, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, this thing has grown, I think, in grandeur.
Yeah. And when it was probably just a run of the mill argument that would happen on the show throughout the week. Just in general,
people working crazy hours, like, going nuts and whittled to the bone and stressed out and drugged out. And just,
So,
fight aside, Andy, Chevy Chase, what's your take in general? Are you a fan?
Yes, I love Chevy. He's a very complicated man for sure. And there is something rather tragic to him that will always keep me from. I just can't hate the guy, even when he is doing some of the worst material and just flailing. Like, I started watching the Chevy Chase show, the interview show from like 93 or whatever, and it is just awful, just embarrassing and so hard to watch. And I'm like, go get him, Chevy. Just go get him. Like, and he's always so hung up. It's interesting that Chevy would be the first person to have a nostalgic, let's look back at the past kind of episode, because at a certain point, that's all he became in a way, where I think he got, like, he just, at some point, everybody just kind of said, I'm kind of tired of this shtick, Chevy. And he's like, but this is all I got.
Yes.
And then
no, I mean, I think that's great.
and then he just kind of had to, like, it's like watching that show. He's doing like Groove Tube, like Channel 1, like super early 70s stuff that he used to do, and he's doing it on this 93 television talk show. And it's like, Chevy, this is so heartbreaking, man. But when he's on, he's on. I mean, there's no denying watching the first season. Of course, he's a star. Yeah. He's so unbelievably confident. He's writing so much of the show, and it like his powers when at the at the height of his powers, the man was incredible. And really, it's the drugs and the misfortunes of his life, kind of dragging him down slowly. But even to this day, I can't hate him. He's just an asshole. And generally right now, considering what comes out about people, just being a stock standard asshole is pretty good, actually. Like, people should kind of hate Chevy less because, he's just kind of a dick, but he hasn't, it's kind of the worst of it. He's so, I don't know. I like Chevy.
Well, should we just get into it?
Yeah,
let's do it. Yeah.
All right. Well, the cold open starts with a former president speaks to America. So you know exactly where this is going. Chevy comes on as President Ford to talk about his support of the Suez Canal Treaty. Which, in my immediate, I was like, wait, did he say Suez Canal? Yes, he did. But he's actually talking about the Panama Canal Treaty, which happened the year before, I think. He's talking about turning the canal over to the Panamanians, or as he called them, the Panamites, our tiny little neighbors to the south. And then he rolls into a bunch of classic Ford jokes. The phone rings. He picks up the water glass. He can't hang the phone up. Jane comes on as Betty Ford. And then, typical chaos ensues with the map. He pulls out a map to show how the canal has made traveling around South America easier. This was not a totally unexpected cold open, I don't think. Andy, what was your take on this?
I think it's fine, but yeah, obviously very much expected. And I would say if you want to think that there's any amount of the fight leaking into the show, I would say it's only in the first couple minutes where this starts off really like I think they're just trying to do classic Ford goof 'em ups with Chevy, where he's like looking at the wrong camera and stuff, but nobody in the crowd seems to understand it quite. And it's way too soon to be doing it. And actually all of this is surprisingly muted from the
I was going to say,
they
like you said, everyone's expecting this. I expected a much bigger response when Chevy comes on as Gerald Ford. I thought that reaction was way less. I was ready for that place to go off the roofs. And muted is a very good word to use.
Yeah. And so I don't know if, he's just trying to get into the groove or a little bit kind of shocked that the gags aren't working right now and doesn't know what to do. But overall, I mean, I'm a sucker for the Ford stuff. This is classic Chevy material to me, and it's certainly not the top tier stuff, but I got some laughs. The map shenanigans got me. And it's a decent fall from him as well.
It's a pretty good fall
as well.
I agree.
So yeah, he basically takes down the whole set with them. So not bad, but a little bit shocking just in terms of trying to clock the audience and like, this is kind of not really getting the reception I honestly thought it would.
I agree, man. Like I said, I thought the audience would have reacted bigger. And then to that point, when he does start looking at different cameras, I half wondered if that was a gag or it was an accident, because it wasn't getting the reactions you thought.
I will say, let me just real quick, Brett, I just want to interrupt. I will say, like, gags like that we've seen in the past, like in this era, don't always play well because of the monitors and the setup in the studio. It was just, I don't know, like camera gags don't tend to work.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sorry, Brad, I interrupted you. Keep going.
No, it's classic Chevy. He calls for liberty. He has a good line where he looks to Jane and says, "Thank you, Ron," which I really liked. For some inexplicable reason, they've got on the map, he pulls out the map and it's, he's talking about if you want to get from Washington, D.C. to San Francisco. And for some reason, Vail, Colorado is on in the middle of the map has a point.
Right.
And he takes the marker. And again, it was funny. He goes all around and outlines around South America. And I really liked how when he started showing you how to use the canal, and he's like, you go down, you go past the canal, and he goes past it and starts scribbling around and goes back to go through. Like there's a lot of like really
multiple errors.
A lot of dumb Chevy stuff. I thought he had a pretty fun gag to the audience where, he goes to hit the maps on an easel and he goes to the map and he kicks it and almost falls and he looks and he goes, almost went. Like, cause he knows the audience is waiting for it. And then he does. I agree. Classic Chevy fall, classic in the sense he completely oversells it, way overboard. He's kicking over chairs, pulling tables down with him. It's everything you expect from a Chevy Chase, Gerald Ford cold open.
And I do love the fact that after this, they, to keep with what's going to be kind of our theme, they played the original opening.
Yep.
Which is a real nice touch. And I think, definitely another clue already that we're going to be looking backwards tonight.
We are going to look backwards. And I'm glad you brought it up now because I have it in a lot of notes as we go on. I don't know if that's for the good, because I agree. There's a lot of looking back. There's a lot of feeling. There's a lot of season one feeling in this.
I mean, that's a good thing for me.
Okay.
He comes out directly in the monologue and starts talking about what he misses the most about being at SNL, and that is the applause. And his whole monologue is built around missing the applause. So he calls out the show for being the best damn comedy show. He calls out New York for being the best city in the world. And then Brooklyn, Queens, and Manhattan each get different call-outs.
He's doing everything he can to get applause.
Yeah. Which I thought that was like a funny Chevy joke where he's, saying, "Oh, I missed the applause." And then he's just pulling for it. This was not a great monologue, I didn't think.
No, the problem is it's so long. It is so very long. Because he even goes, we do a little bit of Chevy singing as well.
God, yeah, we do.
Halfway through it.
Luckily, it was short.
Yeah, and then there's like more gags. Like, I guess everybody just hasn't been feeling the rhythms of Chevy lately, that he kind of does a whole thing where he only does a couple lines of the song, and then he keeps on trying to get the band to stop on the beat, and the band never stops until he finally has to go back and talk to him. And it's another gag that like simply does not seem to, I don't think people are getting it.
No, they're not. You're right.
And then he just goes back to more talking about Queens and stuff. And I was like, all right, wrap it up, man. Like, Christ.
He did not. He eventually pulls up Al Siegel, the cue card guy. And that's when he finally wrapped it up.
Yeah. which, I guess a fun bit of meta-ness, but
All I could think of after this is this guy should get his own talk show someday. Because he can really hold down a monologue, can he not?
yeah, right.
You mentioned earlier, if you didn't know the fight happened beforehand, you'd never know. I do think we mentioned, as we talked about in the monologue, or as we talked about in the cold open, I think here a little bit, he does just seem off.
I don't know who could really pull this off, though.
I mean, that's a good point.
It's 5 minutes at sea, basically.
I want to know who worked on this with him. Like, who wrote this with him?
That's a good question.
No,
Maybe this is the point where like the hype just start. He's like, because again, you got to think again. Remember Chevy Chase, 1970s. How is he going to live up to this hype of coming back on the show? Like maybe it is too soon. I don't know, because I feel this monologue is like things aren't hitting. He's not doing well, and he's just struggling to tread water right now. Oh,
yeah,
it's not a good start.
It's not a good start.
I don't think.
A good way to save it could be a Ravco commercial with Dan.
Shall we go to the wood-paneled world of Dan Aykroyd's pitchmen?
So we get a commercial for the moth masher for when you need to compress your moths for travel. It's absurd. It's Ravco. It's Dan. It has everything that I'm like, I would think on paper, if you told me what this was, I would think that I would love it. But
you would.
I did not.
I did not either.
I thought this was fine, but yeah, it's no great shakes, but it's another one where it feels like a little bit of a throwback to like season 1 or so.
I agree.
But yeah, the idea of somebody having so many mouths and they need to be flattened is in itself a pretty fun little idea. And, maybe it's just me, I'm not really in the weeds with this era. So it was just nice to see Dan doing this whole shtick again for me, just like, oh yeah, I love seeing Dan in his prime, just spouting words a mile a minute.
Dan's great. As always, the delivery is stellar. It's just, there's just not a lot there in this one,
No.
And we haven't seen Ravco. We haven't seen it since season 2. We saw one earlier this season, but it was that Pocket Play sketch, which was actually written by Dave Thomas.
Dave Thomas,
yeah.
yes,
So it wasn't
right.
like a traditional Dan Ravco.
Right.
I literally just had this thought as you were mentioning, Andy, the nostalgia. Do you feel that they purposely crafted this episode to feel like season 1?
Yes, and that's just without the knowledge of what was cut, and just I don't know what else the rest of the episode could have looked like. But I mean, yeah, when they're making choices of we're gonna run the old intro, we're gonna open on Ford.
We do an old Ravco. The fact that you just mentioned it now, and I have a couple notes later on, and we'll get to, there's some sketches where I'm like, what is this sketch doing in 1978? But it just now hit me. I'm like, maybe they made a conscious effort to go old school. I don't know.
I think they did. I think Chevy came in and he was just kind of like, oh man, I haven't really been doing anything. I did a special and nothing. I haven't done a movie yet or whatever. And he's like, I kind of miss this place. Let's do it like we used to. And so, here we are.
I feel like the next sketch is something akin to what we've seen in the past as well.
I feel so. It's
right?
got an older vibe. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a classic. It's amazing. I haven't been able to figure out who wrote it. I think Chevy said he wrote it. I think Zweibel also said he and Gilda wrote it. I'm going to just assume all three.
I think it's in all three.
Then.
Yeah. If I got the same. Yeah.
And I think this one is incredible. It not only, the show's about to lose Marilyn Suzanne Miller, but even in season 3, they've kind of gotten away from her, more dramatic slice of life sketches as the season progresses. And I just love this one.
It feels like hers, doesn't it, though?
It does.
It has that feel.
But there's enough details in it where you go, especially I can feel the Chevyisms in this. Like, I really don't feel Zweibel. Certainly, I'm sure Gilda was there because her performance, is incredible in this. So I'm sure, she definitely was in the mix, but who wants to say what this one's about?
So it's about
Should I?
no. You know what? You love it, Andy. I'll let you talk about it. You go on. You set it up.
Forget it. He's rolling.
Well, I mean, it is Chevy and Gilda. They've just hooked up for the night. We catch them up. We'll catch up with them post-coital, like immediately, in bed at night. And you know, there's a whole just back and forth about basically learning about each other. And first is the whole, you know, Chevy's just concerned or interested in knowing if she had an orgasm, which really gets a good back and forth between them. With Gilda's like, sometimes I do and I don't even know it. Like, there's a real impish quality to Gilda's performance here that I really love. And yeah, it's just them kind of having a post-coital conversation, and it's just really nice. So you really don't. I was really trying to rack my brain of how many times a sketch focused on just Chevy and Gilda, and I couldn't come up with anything. I was like, this is really a dynamic that the show very rarely used, if at all. And I think it's perfect here. Though I will say the ending is the only thing that I don't.
I didn't like the ending either. I will admit, I didn't like this sketch. I felt like it was wanted to be. I didn't. I felt. I don't know, and I think it may have been because I knew it wasn't a Marilyn Suzanne Miller piece, but I felt like it kept trying to be that. But yeah,
I don't know, the whole thing where he's asking her about like, who's Phil, and it's like, Phil's my ex, and then she's like, who's Terry, and he's, I'm Terry.
I did enjoy the second part of the sketch where they start getting to that, who's Terry, I'm Terry, who's mommy. Well, that's my middle name, I swear, Terry mommy.
Yeah.
Right. It did start to pick up there, and you know, and she calls him out for lying, for, you know, he says he has to get up early for a class, and she says, I thought you were a teacher, or I thought you were a pitcher for the Yankees.
Right.
But yeah, then he talks about, then he says, I just said that so I could bring you home with me. And then you cut to the ending and he's like, well, I got to go. And she's like, you can stay as long as you want. He's like, sure, it's your apartment. I was like, well, a lot of the gag was him lying to get her to come home to his apartment, and you end it with like him trying to leave his own. That just again hit me as kind of odd. I was like,
and he
clunky ending.
Kind of looks directly into the camera as well, and I was like, ooh, for something that really didn't call for that really, it's like, ugh, that was a bad way.
It was,
guys.
It was a bad ending. I mean, there were some things that I thought were funny and worked. I think that the Terry line I liked, but all in all, I'm kind of with Brad. I didn't love this sketch. It didn't grab me.
Huh? Shocking.
And to that end, I'm going to say now you've got as we said, kind of a flat cold open, a weak monologue, and now you've got I guess Andy's liking it a bit more. But I was going to say now you're a little bit into the episode. How do we feel of Chevy's return? The golden child is back.
I mean, I'm feeling good.
Are you?
You
still are.
Forward open. Yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah. No, I am on the positive for this episode. Okay. We have some duds, but yeah. No, I'm definitely going to bring the positive take on this episode.
Right.
I like a fair bit of it, to be honest.
That's good. I mean, I think Andy's a good yin to your yang, Brad, because Andy said he's a Chevy fan. You are decidedly not. So this is a good balance here of everyone's feelings of Chevy.
Oh, and I grew to appreciate what Chevy did for the show, and I think he's great on it. And you know, Andy, the question Andy asked about like how many sketches, you know, did they feature Chevy and Gilda? That's kind of the big thing. Chevy was never in sketches.
Right.
He was doing the cold opens. He was doing weekend updates. He'd do a lot of solos to camera. But he was very rarely in a sketch if it wasn't with the host. He'd do a lot of two hands with the host.
Yeah.
Diane Cannon.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple worth like the fairy sketch from like the Candice Bergen episode. He's in there with the cast, but yeah, you're right. I mean, this episode does feel like they're they are kind of battling between the more kind of one or two person sketches of yore and the more ensemble pieces that they've gotten into. So there is a push-pull on trying to get this night over in a way. So,
well, for me, the highlight to this point was our next bit, which is Billy Joel.
I'd say so.
Hey,
comes on and sings "Only the Good Die Young." I love Billy Joel, just full stop. But I also love this song, and I love this album that this was on. This was on The Stranger. It's an excellent album. I thought this performance was amazing.
I agree.
My only note that I had was the hand clapping going on in the background.
That they made Steve Jordan do hand claps? I agree. I was like, son of a bitch. Steve Jordan, Alan Rubin's back there doing hand claps in the dark. Come on, guys.
No, I thought this was wonderful. I loved this performance all the way through.
Yeah, no, this is great. I mean, I like Billy Joel, especially the early stuff, that first decade or so of his material, I think is all really primo. And yeah, Stranger, incredible album. Only the Good Die Young, absolute banger, just pure pop goodness, and an excellent performance of it for sure.
I love that he came out with a kick-ass tune as his first song. We'll see his second song, which is his more famous song, was out, a popular single, a little bit mellow. And I bitch about this all the time when acts come out and their first song is a little bit ho-hum. I love the fact that he came out and played this in your face kick-ass rock and roll song. And he plays the hell out of it, which was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I do wonder, there is the whole opening from Chevy is he's missing his high school reunion. Yeah. I wonder if that was actual factual or just some little bit of nonsense.
I feel like it had to be, because it's not funny in any way. There's no joke to it.
True.
It's too intricate of a lie to make up.
Yeah. That goes nowhere.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. Great era, Billy.
I agree. And he said he was supposed to play "Moving Out" was the song he was supposed to play, apparently, and he made the choice at the last minute, or not the last minute, but early on, he wanted to do this song, which hadn't been released yet. As a single.
And "Moving Out" is a slightly longer song too, so I wonder if there was some time crunch or whatever. And he's like, I'll play the shorter song.
But yeah, "Moving Out" had been released as a single. This will be released as a single down the line. So that's another thing. I like the fact that he comes on. You're going to play a song that your fans know, like your diehard Billy Joel fans know, but your top 40 Billy Joel fans probably haven't heard this song before. And again, played the hell out of it.
Indeed.
Yeah, that was good. That was a lot of fun. It totally lifted my spirits, which was great because the next thing we had brought me back to reality, I guess. This was...
Ooh, this is
rough, right? It's a docudrama called King, and it features Dan, Bill, and Garrett as JFK, RFK, and MLK. And I mean, I don't know that we need to go into this. It's Dan and Bill doing really interesting Massachusetts accents, we got talking about Chowda, and Garrett as Martin Luther King. Brad, tell me what the disgust on your face is hiding.
Well, my disgust on my face is, what is this fucking sketch doing on this show in 1978? All three of these characters have been dead for quite some time. Mm-hmm. A lot of the dialogue is kind of lifted from a Dion song that is 10 years old. Like, this is why I said, oh, God.
I do wonder, because there is a line in the Dion song about it's a variation of the Good Die Young. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if just having Billy Joel there for that week, or whenever he came in, that made them think of this Dion song.
Oh, that's funny, because I was the opposite, where I was like, oh, maybe Billy Joel watched this and was like, oh, let's play Only the Good Die Young.
or maybe that. Oh yeah, maybe that. I mean, there is a weird connection to go from that song and then to have a sketch that is also referencing a song that has a variation of that line in it. This is just white noise. I did love Garrett's line reading of "I shall not be long, for I will only urinate."
That's good.
Yeah.
Was good. Some classic Arch Garrett line readings there. But the whole Chowda stuff and
this is why
just white noise.
This is why my question of like, is this going back to making a season 1 episode? This felt to me like something in season 1 where they're short on time and they don't have material and they pull out an old Lampoon sketch that's 7 years old and they decide to do it. Because there's no reason for this sketch to be on. Your host isn't in it. It's not topical.
Mm-hmm.
It's sadly not that funny. There's a line at the end when they send Garrett off, right? They send MLK. And I guess like the quote unquote premise of the sketch is the Kennedy brothers are trying to hoodwink Martin Luther King into getting bugged. And it's kind of again, happened 15 years ago when the Kennedys were trying to bug Martin Luther King prior to the March on Washington. And they like authorized the FBI to bug Martin Luther King. Again, this is like more outdated than their Nixon jokes from season 1 that they would do.
Yeah, and there is, I think, a slight text crawl at the beginning because we do have this like set up the docudrama-ishness of it, which makes me think like, is this a Franken and Davis? Is this something they've had? Yeah, like you say, just kind of sitting around.
It felt sitting there
for a while. Yeah.
Oh, real quick question. Where's John?
Oh well, yeah, true.
Anyone in this episode? Where's John?
I mean,
he'll pop up. I mean, we're about to get to him. But it is shocking that John does finally first appear halfway through the episode. But we've had a lot of single or two people things. So,
Yeah. And we haven't seen a lot of anyone really except for Chevy until that last sketch, right? Like Lorraine's on for a bit on Rovco, Jane's on for a very short time as Betty Ford.
Yeah. Dan's had 2 appearances.
Yeah.
So
there's not a lot going on.
It's like season 1. Got it.
Exactly. And like season 1, we go to Weekend Update.
I like this new theory of mine I just came up with.
You mean ripping off of Andy's theory?
Yeah, somebody play the tape. I said that first. What the hell?
We get Weekend Update after this, brought to you by Pussy Whip, the first dessert topping for cats.
Yeah, very shocked they got that through.
So we're Dan and Jane, who just stared at one another for a moment afterwards.
There's an O'Donoghue classic for you right there.
Yeah. So it starts with a typical Weekend Update with Dan and Jane going back and forth with some jokes.
And I also want to point out that Jane gets the first round of jokes. She throws it to Dan, who immediately coughs into the mic.
Yeah.
And then starts. It's just like, Dan, come on, man.
How are you not ready for this?
But yes, Dan does get a phone call.
Yeah, that there was an accident with his mother, so he takes off. Then we go to a tight shot of Jane, who tells a joke, and I don't really know what it was. I don't remember. And then it pulls back for a 2-shot, and we see Chevy sitting opposite Jane.
Well, she does kind of a double take. She looks over and is like, what?
When Dan runs off, though, I love when we push in on Jane. And she's like, I'll take care of it, Dan. And then gives a smile.
Yes.
Like, hey, how's it going? You and me now. Finally, we're back.
Finally.
You and me. Again, solo Jane. Let's go.
The show must go on.
Yeah.
Yes.
She does have a great look. Yep.
But then, yes, after a couple jokes, we push out and see that Chevy has arrived.
Yeah. And then he does a couple jokes. He does a Seattle Slew joke, his Mr. Ed voice. Then we get Lorraine interviewing Al Franken as a coal miner who continually coughs up coal dust.
That's the whole. That is the whole joke.
I'm actually coughing here. I'm sorry.
I was waiting for you to reach down under the screen, Andy, and like pick up a handful of black dust and just cough it out.
Yeah.
Right, boy, is this a one-note gag?
Yeah.
Oh boy,
it really is.
Pretty much.
Like, I get it. Like, it's not bad for just the one joke of, the coal miners basically fighting to die. And he's just coughing up smoke the entire, but it just goes on and on.
Does.
Kills the pace so bad that when we finally end it, you get one person.
Yeah.
Like everybody hated that.
Yeah.
Like I think people laughed at the first couple times he started coughing up the dust, and then, ooh boy, did it lose! And it's like, this is it. Jeez.
They quickly realized as well, this is it. Okay.
Yeah.
Should point out that for this week, the one thing with Jane in her battles with this week was that, going into it, she assumed like, oh yeah, we're going to do something with Chevy on the weekend update desk. Like, yeah, we'll do that. We'll bring Chevy back to the desk. And then she got super pissed when then Lauren and Chevy called her in, as I think her and her husband were going out to a ballet during the middle of the week or something like that, and called her in to have a very serious conversation. Is all right if Chevy, I think we're going to have Chevy come in. And she's like, yeah, no, I know. I assumed we were going to do this. I'm late for my thing. Can I go, you idiots? So I think that primed the pumps for what we'll get towards the end of this.
Yeah.
But I do love that. Yeah, she walked in the wheel. Yeah, we'll do something with Chevy on update, and then had to inconvenience her with like, oh, are you going to be okay with this? I think we're going to have Chevy on update.
There's been accounts of Chevy basically like making this into a thing. Like I have to be on the show and Jane can't be on there with me. I'm going to like upstage her. Like I'm going to like run circles around her. She can't stand, she can't hold her own with me on Weekend Update. This kind of back and forth as to what happened. Again, another one where
that I haven't heard, but
attributed to the possible, drugs that may have been going on in his system at that time and, turned it into a thing. But yeah, it's just,
and the thing is, he gets upstaged by Jane. So in the end,
nice try, Sparky.
Nice try, Sparky.
How great is Jane?
I'd like that there is a narrative to this update. It is a rare time that they kind of have a small update gets kind of turned into a sketch in a way. Bit. It has beats, a little bit, and has an ending. Mm-hmm. And so that's but. Chevy tries to do the whole phone call prank on her, and he's just doing the thing on the other side of the desk. Catches him. Nice try, Sparky.
And they jump out to the wide shot, and he looks and says, "Oh, it's for you. Sorry."
And then John Belushi finally arrives.
Finally.
So what do you guys think about these but no rants?
Well, I think this is the first time he actually does the but no in the rant, because he's done a few of the weatherman spiels, but he hasn't gotten into the but no yet. I think he threw it out for the first time a couple sketches ago. We saw it's an interesting John correspondent piece because he doesn't really do his like dial it up to 11 and have the heart attack berserk kind of thing at the end. Like you said, Andy, I didn't love his bit as it stood on its own, but then I love how he talks about being in a fight, and then he goes to Jane. Have you been in a fight? And like women need to take care of themselves, and he starts putting on some boxing gloves, and then John basically beats up Jane to knock her out to hand the desk over to Chevy. So like continuing that storyline, which that part I actually did like, and of all of like the John physical humor, I thought it actually was somewhat believable and played well.
Okay, for me, I hate these, and they're just so rambling. They barely ever make many jokes, and to have John's first appearance of the night again culminating in him beating up a woman, where when Jane finally appears, she you can almost say, oh, she falls down in fright or something. No, she appears later on with a giant bruise on her face.
They give her a shiner,
He hit her.
Yeah, they give her a shiner.
He hit her. The only thing I ever enjoy about these is when they pull out to the two shot and you get Jane reacting to John. And I think Jane's just, perfect at that stuff. I never understood the appeal of these John rants at all. And I have no lines written down that it's like, okay, you mentioned Brian, that's fun. I like Brian, but boy, yeah. Gary, I mean,
No,
what's your
I'm
take
more
on this?
aligned with you, Andy, on these. And this one, I agree. The only parts that actually caught my attention that I understood were going on was he talks about Billy's brother Brian Doyle Murray and then Steve Bishakus. But otherwise, yeah, I don't like the violence towards Jane. It always makes me uncomfortable even when they pull out to that two shot. Like, I think because Jane is so good at that, it just makes me uncomfortable.
And then, then we got, and boy, you guys would know better than me. When is the last time we've seen old Emily Latilla?
Well, it's not as long ago as you would have thought, Andy.
Really?
It never is.
I did laugh when she rolled out, Gary. But I said, Gary, this is the last time you see her, at least at the desk.
Yeah.
Oh,
This
that's
is the
true. She does have the.
She pops up, I think, a couple more times. But
season 4 for some weird the Porgy and Bess.
Yeah, and she's on. I think she's on one more time this season.
Yeah.
But this is the last. This is the last time you got to deal with her on the desk, Gary.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now I do love always her rolling in with like, oh, cheddar cheese. Cheddar cheese is a gag that always works for me. Calling Chevy Cheddar. But yeah, there's not much more to Emily's appearance than Jane getting up from the ground and getting disgusted at both of them.
One more time.
And,
how great is Jane?
Yeah,
she is fantastic in this. She
my favorite of the OG.
She
era,
leans into
always.
the two of them.
Here. First I get slugged by Belushi. Now I gotta deal with you. Just get out of here, will you? Come on.
Oh, excuse me.
I said scram. Beat it. Get out of here.
Oh, Miss Clayton.
What's so funny?
Miss Clayton, you look like hell.
That's not funny.
Well, I told you she couldn't take a joke.
Take it easy, Jane. Don't be so rough on her.
Don't tell me how to act. Damn it, this is my new show now. I'm the star of it. You left, I took over and brought some integrity to it. None of your schoolboy cuteness mugging into the camera talking like Mr. Ed. I've given this show credibility. I've given it straightforward, informative news.
But Miss Clayton,
Shut up, you phoebe. So what do? You come back, you give Danny some story about his mother dying, try to pull the same thing on me, just to take over so you can satisfy your inflated ego. We'll go back to Hollywood and do it, because it won't work here. This is my show, and I won't be pushed around by Belushi or you or her. Am I making myself clear?
crystal clear, Miss Curtin. We're sorry.
We are sorry, Jane. I didn't mean to aggravate you like this. I guess I just wanted to do update one last time, and I'm sorry. Got carried away. Sorry.
It won't happen again.
We'll see that it doesn't.
On your mark, get set, go. Bitch.
I enjoyed this for the nostalgia of it all, I will say.
Chevy's making his dumb faces when Jane's yelling at him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's doing the like blah, 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 blah,
Again, something that I never
yeah.
found funny, so I was just saying.
No, but I liked
No,
it.
no.
But I liked it here for some reason. I don't know. I enjoyed watching Jane give it to the two of them and seeing the three of them together. I don't know why, but I liked it.
I mean, it's just the arc of Update coming to it. Like, it has Update has an ending of a sketch, you know, which is this whole angry monologue from Jane, and really her righteous indignation of like, I've been doing a damn good job at this, and I don't need either of you here to bring me down. And I was like, hell yeah,
right.
That's right, Jane. Yeah. I'm with you. And then we do close on something that always gets me. I'm a sucker for news for the hard of hearing. And so getting Garrett out there to scream the lines always makes me laugh.
if
Why
he had done
they mess with the ending? Yeah, why'd they mess with the ending?
Oh, that was weird. I didn't even know what the hell that was.
It's another one. I'm like, he messed that up, or was that scripted? Because good night and have a pleasant tomorrow, and he's like, good night and have a pleasant evening. And Chevy corrects him.
Evening, yeah.
It's like, what the?
Yeah,
That's your bread and butter.
They would have been too separated, on stage for I think them to correct that like as a live gaffe. I think that was written.
Yeah,
It's very weird, very weird.
Where was the Generalissimo Francisco Franco joke?
Oh, true. Yeah, they missed.
Realize that we missed that. Let's get Chevy in a sketch, shall we?
Chevy's in the next sketch, which is it also feels like a sketch we saw before with baggage inspection. We saw it with Dan with all the metal at one point. But anyway, this time Dan is teaching Chevy how to do customs and pull people who may or may not have brought drugs from Bolivia with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so he finds a marijuana seed in Garrett's luggage. And then
I do like that gag that it is full of clothes and he reaches in and finds the marijuana seed.
Yeah.
A seed. And then Garrett's like, I gotta go, and like starts stuffing a joint down his mouth. So I do like that opening gag.
Yeah, and I thought Garrett was good with, like you said, Andy, when he's stuffing the joint into his mouth. He's like, I gotta go to the bathroom. It was fun.
Yeah. And some fast action from Dan as he's like leaping over the desk. So that gag hits well enough. And, I guess this one kind of has a point, a little bit of a message in terms of how racist Dan's character is.
He even says it, doesn't he?
It's kind of the essence of the whole sketch. Yeah, because when Dan's giving him the spiel, he's like, priest, let through. Young white couples, let through. Blacks, stop and question.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's how he starts the sketch. And then we'll get through. And then again, by the end of the sketch, after John and Lorraine leave, Bill Murray walks in dressed as a priest with a glass and mustache disguise, carrying a wheelbarrow of blow. He waves him through, and then there's a black woman carrying a suitcase. He's like, no, ma'am, right here. Come on, we're going to go through this right here.
But it's
like
early appearance of
Yvonne Hudson, yeah.
But it is Chevy's the one that waves Bill through. Like Dan is
right. He's gone away,
right.
but they're setting the tone from the very first like 3 lines. They do at least carry that theme out the entire sketch.
Yeah. And Chevy's just kind of oblivious to it all.
Right. And so, in a sense, there's it's a clean concept. It's not really muddied by extraneous horseshit. Like they do set it up the first couple lines, and they kind of follow through on it. It's just really up to how funny you think searching through John's obviously weed bag and coke laden luggages with trying to distract Chevy from that.
My favorite gag was Lorraine's clearly like filled out with fake breasts and a belly and saying she's pregnant, and then John happens to poke it, but when he it's supposed to poke it and then the coke is just supposed to come out of her boob and it wouldn't go, and he's like pinching at it and pulls it, and then it just I thought that was funny.
Doesn't he also like pat himself and also leak coke at some point?
He's just like covered.
No, it's coming off her still.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. All right. I mean, there's something about this where I can see on the page and conception, like, this could work. These are some decent enough sight gags. And it just doesn't really come together for some reason.
Yeah.
I agree with everything Andy said, and I really like this sketch. I think it's because I have not been enjoying this episode, and this is low-hanging fruit. They don't stretch. It's very, very obvious what they're doing, but for some reason, it felt comfortable. I enjoyed it. I thought John and Chevy were good. I like the sight gags of opening the suitcase and having all the blow. And it was obvious, and you knew where it was going. But I don't know. I enjoyed the comfort.
It's very clean.
It is very clean, and it's it felt very. I get it. I know where this is going. This is what I want to see. I enjoyed it.
Did you enjoy seeing Jacqueline Carlin?
That's right. Yeah, we do get to see her.
The episode's almost over. We had to see her at some point.
Yeah. So featured player of the first episode in a way.
Yeah.
We're about to see two people that appeared on the
that's
first
a very
episode,
good call.
actually.
Yeah.
Good. Because we get Brad's favorite time of night, a Gary Weiss film.
Ooh, I'm psyched. Love Gary Weiss. I love Gary Weiss pre-tapes.
How did you feel about this one?
It's good. It's more
Are you on crack?
gag folk. Am I on crack? All the time. This one's more gag focused than usual, where she's just kind of going through her day and very innocuous, but in small bad things are happening to her as over the soundtrack we get this ethereal like which kicks up through the entire
That's
thing.
very good.
And thank you. And so it kind of builds and builds until she finally gets home. It's like, what's going on? And we finally go up to this room, and it's Valerie Brumfield, who is just babbling into a tape recorder. And so, I like it. Again, very clean, not a lot there, but it is just short enough to tell its joke. I think smarter viewers may have gotten the joke before it finally hits, which is maybe its biggest failing. But overall, I like this one.
Great. Brad?
Don't look at me, man. I got nothing on this one. I am not the world's biggest Gary Weiss fan, true. But even for me, this one was it was a little rough.
This is one. I think the last time we saw Gary Weiss was with Steve Martin, where he goes to the
Steve's
celebrity homes, right? That was fun.
Oh,
yeah. That was a fun episode or a fun film. This one, I felt like it had like the concept. But this is another one where it's like, okay, and in theory and concept, I can see this. It just, I don't know. I felt like the payoff wasn't there. Like it wasn't. There wasn't enough of it for me. Like the setup wasn't good enough for the end gag for me.
Okay. Fair enough. I disagree.
Yeah. I liked it. No, that's good.
And hey, again, if you were somehow a super dialed in viewer at the time, you go, hey, that lady from the first episode.
Yeah, right.
Well, the nostalgia theme sticks with the next bit too, which is a sermonette.
Yeah.
Where we
Chevy
get
Solo.
Why
Solo.
not?
Yeah.
He's from the Church of Confusion. He is his confused holiness, Maharishi O'Mulligan Diaz. And Chevy's, and this is like, this to me was a classic Chevy bit where he is delivering a sermon and he's drawing from many different religions and mixing things up and intertwining them. And this felt classic Chevy to me.
Oh yeah, this is crystalline Chevy nonsense.
And finally, the traveler came upon a giant footprint in the ground, and he spaketh truly that this must be the hand of God. And he was confused. He went to the foot of the mountain and he cried, confused at last, Lou, Mr. Fields wants the rent. We are confused at last. And so, as we prepare to meet another day. In closing, I would like to read from Leviticus 1, chapter 4, Jackson 5. Take, eat. This is my body. How do you like it? So in closing, may your karma be fine when combined with a conscientiously applied program of oral hygiene and regular dental care. Amen. Good night. Hello.
It's one that almost just because it is so heavily focused, there's really no visual component to this. I was like, speaking of throwback stuff, it's like, I wonder if this is something left over from like the National Lampoon Radio Hour. Going all the way back.
Yeah.
That there's like, this could just be on radio. This is just Chevy babbling.
Well, and even
but it is primo Chevy babbling.
And even the throwback of season 1, this is in front of a green screen. Like so many times, season 3, they actually will build actual sets. This is like old school. We're like, we're just gonna put you in front of a green screen and do your bit.
Yeah. So I in a way, I wonder if this is another one where like we're kind of running iffy on time, and just we're gonna toss this one in last minute. But I like it. I mean, I did not take extensive notes on it, but I think you could pop in any clip of Chevy babbling here, and you'll get a couple good turns of phrase and just Cheviness going on. So pretty good on. I like this one as well.
How'd you feel, Brett?
I did not love this one. What it's funny. I feel like this is. Because we've seen Chevy so much, it kind of took some of, I think, the luster or enjoyment of seeing these Chevy solo pieces, like as might have enjoyed them more back in the day when he wasn't featured in other sketches and stuff so much. Because I didn't love this one, but like as Andy said, there are a couple, like I didn't make that many loads, but yeah, you get a chuckle here, you get a laugh there. The one I wrote down was Lativius 1, Chapter 4, Jackson 5. That got
yes, the Jackson 5.
That got I laughed out loud on that one, but by the end of it, I was just kind of like, what was this? What did we see? And I think Andy made a good point. It feels very Lampoon Radio Hour. Again, like season 1, we're short for time. What can we pull out? Stand in front of a green screen.
That's what I liked in it.
You are. I think you're right on that.
What I liked in it. As we push on, we do hit another one where I feel like this is a sketch. Our next sketch, Great Moments in War, is another one where the show doesn't. It hits another speed bump of okay, Chevy's here. Let's put Chevy in a sketch with the ensemble.
Yep.
Now, granted, I would say that the it's the writing that really lets this one down.
Great set.
Yeah. I'll just set this one up. So it takes place, like you said, Great Moments in War, somewhere in France in 1944. And Dan and Bill pull up on a motorcycle and sidecar to a checkpoint, which is manned by John, Chevy, and Garrett. And they are the Americans. They have to ask questions to assure that no Germans or Jerrys get into their camp. So they're asking the questions about like state capitals and baseball phrases, the Texas Leaguer, and they know all the answers to this, including how much a baseball weighs, which I just learned.
Yeah, down to scientific detail.
Which I just learned. So I think I understand what you're saying, Andy, and I agree. I think the writing, I feel like, especially where it ends, this sketch kind of went nowhere. But this is one that I liked the idea. And again, it's probably, I really liked Hogan's Heroes when I was a kid. So this is kind of like that, except the Germans are outsmarting the Americans this time, until the Americans outsmart themselves by asking who's the manager of the Cleveland Indians. Right. So it was, and I like Dan and Bill's performances as the German office soldiers or whatever. But it did end up flat because of the writing. I agree with that.
Yeah. I had thin was the word I used. It's just like, yeah, like I agree. The performances are all fine. They're good. It's just, there's nothing there to hang them on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's clean. It's not a terribly messy sketch in its conception and how they pull it off. But yeah, and especially like just the extended ending of nobody knowing who the manager of the Cleveland Indians is. So it's like, okay, neither the two Germans don't understand it or no. So it's like, haha, now we got you. And then Garrett doesn't know. Oh, Garrett, you're a German. Oh, Chevy doesn't know either. And then John doesn't know either. And so you go to like multiple beats of like people don't know as you were.
With nothing paying it off. Like,
you
needed
twist.
A beat to end it well. Like you needed something else to happen to like button this thing. And like, which never came.
They never found it.
Did you guys know who the manager of the Cleveland Indians was in 1944?
No. But I am German.
Oh, there you go.
So
that's
fine.
I was going to guess Lou Brown. No.
Lou Boudreau.
Oh,
Lou Brown.
It's a major league reference. He managed the Toledo Mud Hens. Come on. The only thing that was semi-enjoyable this sketch was watching the five guys together, because I think this is the only time in the show's history you see these 5 guys on stage together.
Oh, true.
So
very
again,
true.
it doesn't do you anything watching it in 1978, but looking back now, I did enjoy just seeing just the 5 guys together for a couple minutes for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, it's true.
In black and white.
Interesting.
Yeah.
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 Have we already missed? Is this where Billy Joel?
Yeah.
comes
He's
back,
back,
or did we
baby.
Miss.
He's back.
Okay,
Yeah,
Billy
he's
Joel's
back and he plays Just the Way You Are.
right. Which is funny coming off of Great Moments in War, where everybody
Yeah.
doesn't know what to think of the other person. It's like, you know what? But Billy Joel likes you just the way you are, even if you don't know who the manager of the Cleveland Indians is.
Play the hit, baby.
Yeah. This, just as an aside, this song was my parents' wedding song, and they got married exactly 1 week after this episode aired. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Nice. Lore drop there.
So
Is this another one off The Stranger?
Yes.
Indeed.
Is this the first lead-off single?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this was the big single at the time. It was like number 3. This was his big hit at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, not my favorite, but I do appreciate the song. It's not a bad song, but Only the Good Die Young or Moving Out, scenes from Italian restaurants are the ones that are,
I feel like
stand out more to me than this
Yeah.
I
one.
feel like people who don't like Billy Joel would point to this song. Like it's slow, the
As
sax
a reason
solo.
for not.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like unjustified.
I think the sax solo is great. That's like the best
who
part.
are
of it.
these people that don't like Billy Joel? Give me
I
their
don't
names
know.
and
You know,
numbers.
Who are these people?
I have got phone calls to make.
But you could tell
Yeah, they're out
he sings
there.
the first line and the crowd like reacts. There's a
Yeah.
big applause after he sings that first line. Like they're excited to see it. And again, I give him credit. Way to hold off till the second song to play this.
Yeah,
song.
way to hold off to
I
like
like
what
it.
12:50
Yeah.
or
I like
whatever.
it.
Oh,
It's just like end of the night.
Can we talk about the way that they shot this? There was a
Are we going
whole
to talk about Davey
section-
Wilson? I am very unhappy with the way Davey Wilson shot Billy Joel in this episode. Both performances, yes.
There was a shot
Okay,
that he held for way too long. The shot was
Where's my note? I have it here somewhere.
between
Yes.
the saxophone player and the saxophone, the shot of Billy Joel.
It was the
That
one
one?
good shot Davey did both performances where he starts from behind the sax player, and in between him and the saxophone, you see Billy Joel. It's the one good move he does. He does this push in through, so it ends up on a close up of Billy Joel, and then he stays on it way too long.
Way too long.
Way too long.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the other camera wasn't in position.
Could've been.
You never know if he couldn't cut to the other
Maybe, but
camera.
he should have he should have a shot established before he tries a move like that. Andy.
Something. Come on, Dave.
You gotta.
I noticed
Fair
it in the
enough,
first
fair
performance and this one.
That's interesting. I'm usually cued in. I usually really do try and cue into the direction.
I did
of
not
the
like
musical
either way he
performances,
shot either performance.
But
No, I agree with you. And this, I saw your note on that, and that's I had written down the between the sax player and his chest, and just holding it there was it was egregious. It was insane.
And it boggles my mind a little more because he's a dude at a piano.
Exactly.
Like, it's not that hard to figure out your shots. He's not moving the whole
I
time.
know. I know.
yeah.
High marks for the musical guest, man. He played a kick-ass song first, and it wasn't his hit. I mean,
Right.
Two
And then he
kudos.
played his
Oh,
hit,
yeah,
and
no.
everybody loved it. So yeah.
No.
That's what more can you ask of a musical guest?
nothing.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Speaking of good stuff,
Yeah.
I love the last sketch.
Hey, all
Good.
right. Finally.
See, there you
We're
go.
all on
I had
the
to get
same
it out.
page on
I had to get it
something.
out.
Everybody likes endings.
This is great, right?
This sketch starts with the three ladies sitting around a table, all with British accents. They're all old. They all have wigs on. They're like old British ladies. And my first note was, where are we going with this? And then Chevy comes in through the door to tell them that this sketch is going nowhere. You have to wrap it up. I want to do this big thank you at the end of the show at Good Nights Tonight. And he says, he then goes on to, I had an ending for this sketch. Wait, I forget what it was. And he tosses to Dan doing his Rod Serling impression.
He doesn't even toss.
Do it. So yeah,
They just
I-
pan.
just-
They just kind of
right.
pan.
He doesn't toss.
It is pan over. And so I love that, like, ending a sketch on a Twilight Zone reference is already, like, I would say at this point, a well-known cop-out to kind of end the sketch. So I love that they go to that first.
Okay.
is to end it. It's like, okay, a man who doesn't know how to end a sketch, or however it goes, is already a great reference. And like I love, you said the gals are all doing, very British. This is all very Python, very Monty Python to me. And I love how this one just goes through multiple layers as so we ended on the Twilight Zone. Then we fade out to that on a television that John Belushi as Truman Capote is watching.
Yeah.
And gives his review of it, where he loves it. It's like, head humor isn't dead. Which I thought, again, nice kind of throwback to what they're trying to do for this episode. And yeah, we get, God, then Bill comes in and
as his TV director character, quote unquote. Like we've kind of seen versions of this in the past.
The director,
Mm-hmm.
And it starts talking about him not wearing any pants, and John's like, I don't know, it's like a British thing. The ladies come back in. Everybody goes, all right, let's do heart attacks for the ending, and there's a good round of that going on. I think
John starts the heart attack, and then
there's no way to get out of. There's no way to end the sketch with a heart attack, and then falls.
And then Bill's like, John, you can't end a sketch with a heart, and then he has one, and then all the ladies, and then Jane throws in a Gary Weiss. That's where she throws
Goddamn
in a Gary
Jane.
Weiss.
Oh, yeah.
So
Tonight's.
Which is, again, one of the old, God damn it, Andy, to your point, season 1 cop-outs. How many times could they not end a sketch turned into an intro to a Gary Weiss film?
Mm-hmm.
It was
into a Gary Weiss
brilliant.
thing.
I love that. But the Jane, here's a film from Gary. What? Oh, I thought it was great. I loved it. Loved it.
And then we fold that into, because knock at the door. Who is it? It's the land shark, as we fold into Jaws 5 and do the classic land shark bit.
Yeah.
And then I love that
he says, I got an ending for your sketch, and that's when they open the door.
That's what gets them to open the door. Funny ending for your skin.
And then I love that this sketch actually does have a great ending to it, because then we go back to the original sketch, and as was hinted at in the original conversation between the girls and Chevy, that Garrett was supposed to come in. And so Garrett finally slides in, like, how's it going?
Dressed as the Archbishop of Canterbury. He's in this elaborate Archbishop costume.
There's supposed to be some white people.
Yeah. Comes right at the camera, looks back, he's like, aren't there supposed to be some white people back here?
That's the ending. That's the funny ending. I don't have any pants on. It's kind of real English, you know what I mean? It's just, we're almost out of the scene. Well, John, that is the kind of experimental stuff you can do on your own program, all right? I'm sorry, but I can't live with those legs. It is a wrap on the underwear look, okay? Wardrobe, put him into something. Wait a minute. Hey, come on. Are you a bunch of total lamos? What's going on here? There is no ending to this scene. The scene has no ending. There's only one way out of this scene, and that's to have a heart attack. Smooth move, John. Heart attack. Great. All right, I'm going to have to catch you girls later.
Oh, boy, that's real great for the guys, but women have a lower incidence of... Oh, no, you guys aren't going to sleaze out of the scene on me. And now a film by Gary...
Mrs. Falls, Mrs. Falls, Senator.
Who is it?
Mrs. Earls.
What?
Mrs. Olson, please.
There's no Mrs. Orfulwaite here. What do you want?
Candygram.
We're in diets. Go away.
Your limousine is ready, ma'am.
We didn't order any limousine.
Funny ending for scene, ma'am.
Come on in.
What's happening? I guess I'm a little late, huh? Because there was supposed to be some white folks back here. So I guess I'll just
Shuffle off the buffalo. Shuffle off the buffalo. Shuffle off the buffalo. That's all, folks.
Well, good night, everybody.
Oh man, yeah, I love this. Really, the After Love sketch is the one that pops in my mind when I think about this episode. But I think this actually is the standout sketch of the night. I really, really love this. All the escalation, all the meta-ness, it really comes together, and it's an ensemble piece that works.
You see everybody exactly. Everybody works. Everybody works well. Like we've seen a few instances this season where like you feel like Garrett or Lorraine get like forced into a sketch so they get screen time, but like everybody worked in this scene. Everybody had a purpose. My only knock on this is so Garrett does his little song and he kind of shimmies out and he closes the door and he pops it back open. It's like that's all, folks.
Yeah,
they should have ended there. Chevy comes out,
and then Chevy comes out
with the land shark. And he's like, "Good night," and it's like, if they would have ended on the Garrett note, I would have said Pitch Perfect. That's the only thing. Again, this is like a nitpicky thing, but I don't think you needed Chevy coming back. But yeah, this was great. It hit on so many levels. It's so funny. It's written so smart. It's done so well. Performances are all great.
Yeah.
Loved it.
It really was a great way to end the entire episode.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's our episode. Brad, you did not like this episode.
I say it's not a great episode, and I'm not sure if it's a good episode, but I feel like Andy might differ on the good rating.
Oh yeah, I think it's a good episode for sure. It's not great. It has moments of greatness in it. But yeah, I don't think they really slept on this one. I don't think they ever got the alchemy quite right, but it's, like I said, one of the times where the alchemy kind of even works, bringing Chevy back. A lot of times it just, they falter even harder, from here on out. So, yeah.
Yeah, I realize I think I fall victim a little bit of overhyping. And then as I sit and think about, it's like, what was I expecting? Because
I mean, have you seen this episode before?
A while ago. It's been a while since I've seen these.
Okay.
I haven't revisited. Some of these I've seen more recently than not. But in general, I sat there. I was like, what was I expecting? Because I do think it's a very different show in season 3 than it was in season 1. Season 1 was very kind of a Chevy focused on, cold open, update, a couple solos. It was rare he was in a proper sketch. I think it was even more rare that those sketches were good back in the day. But I think it just goes to show how great the show is, how much better the show's gotten since then. A bigger question is, what would this show be in season 3 if Chevy didn't leave? Would it have stayed in that vein of the season 1 mold, this nostalgic show? Like, because again, and Andy, I think it is an interesting point. Like, it is very season 1. It does have a very season 1 feel. And if he hadn't left, would they have stayed in that mold, or would they have grown into this ensemble-y thing that they become? Which I don't know. I would argue is a better show.
Yeah, I mean it's so unknowable, but I think even by you're getting into season 2, the ensemble quality of the cast is opening up even while Chevy's still there. So I think he kind of would have still ended up around this point, even if Chevy was still there. Possibly.
I don't think you could have
impossible to say.
I don't think it would have sustained if they kept the trajectory of season 1. I don't think people would have stuck around. Like, I don't think John would have stuck around.
Yeah,
at all.
No, and yeah, the audience and Chevy would have flared out super quickly. People would have gotten tired of him even quicker. So, I think the show, just to survive, would have not focused on him as much as time went on anyway. But then, would have been bad blood. Just it was I know Chevy regrets leaving when he did, but I think it was just better for him, for everybody, maybe not him actually, for him to get out when he did. So,
well, Andy, What were your best bits?
Best bits. Well, okay. So definitely throwing it down for After Love. Love that one. Worth seeing. Just another. It's an interesting variation on the slice of life, semi-dramatic things that they would do in this era. Weekend Update, I thought was worth seeking out just for the rare time that they actually have a storyline throughout the segment. And endings for sure is another standout moment. And if you love yourself some just Chevy gobbledygook, Sermonette gives it to you. I mean, it's just straight 3 minutes of Chevy madness. And so if that's your thing, also worth checking out.
Brad, what were your best bits?
I didn't enjoy it as much as Andy. I only had endings. Endings was my one best bit I would throw in.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I think endings. We all agreed that was that
was a great sketch.
The unanimous sketch for the three of us tonight. I really liked Sermonette too. I just thought it was really smart, and I liked Chevy's performance in that one.
I am honestly shocked that you guys didn't like After Love. I thought that was another one where that was an easy lock, for this episode. I feel like that's a well-loved sketch. So,
well, we don't fall in line with everybody, Andy. Just because everyone else likes it doesn't mean we have to.
Fair enough. I do the same. I was just a little bit shocked. I was like, oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. Well, Andy, thanks for doing this. This was great. We appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Indeed.
Will you let everybody know where they can find you?
That week in SNL, we are also talking about vintage episodes of the show, but we're ping-ponging all around the eras and also just exploring other sketch projects and various ephemera to really grab hold of the medium.
You guys also do tons of stuff. We should say, what is it, like every week? Like the live viewings you guys do of not only SNL, but like almost every other sketch show.
Yeah.
Like this amount of stuff you guys do is kind of staggering. I'm amazed at what you guys pull off.
Yeah, if you want to come over on Twitch, twitch.tv/thatweekindSNL, every Thursday and Sunday, we've got 2 blocks of 4 hours of sketch comedy. Thursday focuses more on U.S.-based stuff. We're running vintage Smothers Brothers right now, and Kids in the Hall. It's more Canadian, North America focused on that one. And then Sundays, where we've been kind of going chronologically throughout the years. So we are now in season 7 of SNL. So we're in 82, and so we're kind of watching as much 82-centric sketch comedy as I can find, which means we're also watching You Can't Do That on Television, not necessarily the news, or not the 9 o'clock. No, wait. Yes, we're watching not the 9 o'clock news. Not necessarily the news. We'll follow, because that is the U.S. version that starts up about a year afterwards. And a whole bunch of other stuff. So yeah, we are. I'm deep in the trenches of sketch. Just trying to just get it all up in here.
Wow,
watching it all.
Well, thank you for taking some time and chatting with us, because it was a good one.
We appreciate it.
Indeed,
it was awesome.
It was fun. Thanks for having me. Another place for me to babble about sketch comedy. I need these outlets.
Quite all right, sir.
Next week, we'll be talking about season 3, episode 12, with host O.J. Simpson.
Say who now?
Maybe you heard.
Say what?
Him.
What? Who? What?
That's the next episode.
Yeah, but he was bigger in the 90s.
He was big. A star. Back in 1978.
No, I gotta say, if you take that episode in context, it's not too bad. It's not a bad episode.
With musical guests Ashford and Simpson.
Wait, he's the musical guest too? Son of a bitch, that guy does it all.
Until then, good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
Good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
The Not Ready for Primetime podcast is a Two Pints Productions production. Produced and edited by Brad and Gary. Thought about by Brad and Gary. Please rate and review. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.